These are some of the reasons students forget what they have been taught by the teachers, and then they struggle when they get assessed. And guess what? Every reason I'm going to give you as to why students forget whatever they are taught has a solution to it. The first number one reason is lack of engagement or lack of active engagement. Sometimes it's a fault of the teacher. The teacher comes and talks and talks and talks and talks without engaging learners, having them to be engaged. And the learner just consumes information. Because they lack that active engagement, they end up forgetting everything. So what's the solution to this? Learners should be actively engaged in the process of teaching and learning, so they are able to memorize everything the teacher talks about. Second reason is what we call the forgetting curve. Now, what's the forgetting curve? The forgetting curve is something that describes the ability of a learner to retain the information that the teacher has taught them. Now, what causes learners to forget? It goes back to the first reason I gave you, lack of active engagement. The research shows that was done in 1885 that learners forget 70% of the things that they have been taught in the next 24 hours. So how can we help learners to get off the forgetting curve? Through having active learning, through having strategies like learner-centered, so they cannot forget everything that is being taught to them. Reason number 3 why learners forget and they struggle with memorizing what the teachers taught them is what we call cognitive overload. Now, learners are taught so much or too much than the brain can contain. Research that was done showed that the brain working memory can contain about 4 to 7 chunks of information. That means when you're going to teach learner a certain information, you have to break it down into small chunks. Now that brings us to the habit of teaching or a strategy called chunk and chew. So teach a learner a small chunk of information. Give them time to chew that information, to feast on that information. After time, they would have consumed this information and they can memorize it very well. That's when you introduce another chunk, little by little. So cognitive overload causes our learners to forget most of the things that the teachers teach them. And how to solve it is by using a strategy called chunk and chew. Teach one small bit at a go. At the end, the learners will be able to connect the different pieces of the puzzle and they will come out with something useful. Then another reason why learners fail to memorize what the teachers teach them is because of poor learning methods. For example, multitasking. The learners learning, probably they are conversing with a friend, probably they are on a phone, revising at home, probably they are watching a TV. You can't learn when you are multitasking. Learning needs a concentrated mind, a focused mind, so you are able to learn whatever you are trying to learn. But if you're trying to multitask at the same time you're learning, it's a very big problem. So how do we solve this problem? We solve it by taking one task at a go, prioritizing, putting first things first. Do your learning first and then do other things. That's how you're going to be able to memorize everything your teachers teach you. Another reason why learners fail to memorize everything the teachers have taught them is lack of meaningful connection. You're teaching learners probably volcanic mountains. They have never seen a volcano anywhere. So you need to bring something that is realistic so they can connect whatever they have learned with a realistic example. But every time you speak a lot of stuff, it will seem like rocket science to them because they lack a connection. Connecting existing information with the new information enhances memorization. So it means we need to teach learners while we are relating to the real life situations so they can connect what we are teaching them with exactly what is out there. Another big reason as to why learners forget what they are being taught is because of stress and anxiety. Some learners are super stressed at their homes, others are in meaningless relationships. So many things, they're carrying so much load on their heads at their very young age. So there is a conflict in their minds. There is content teachers are teaching, and then there are their own personal mental battles that they are fighting. So how do we overcome this? It's by offering our learners counseling, so they are not stressed and they are anxious about nothing. So that will help our learners to learn better and hopefully memorize stuff better. Stress sometimes brings about inadequate sleep, so the learners don't get to rest enough. By the time they try to learn, perhaps when in class, the brain can't learn effectively because they didn't have enough rest for the mind. If you find this content useful, please kindly like this video, share it with your friends, and if you haven't yet subscribed, kindly subscribe so you won't miss any useful content like this. See you in my next video. It's Mr. Jackson Educates. Bye bye. Take care.